I remember the exact moment my world shifted. It wasn't the flight over, not the scorching Bangkok heat, or even the chaos of Pattaya. It was her smile. That's where it all started, and that's where I became the biggest fool. I thought I was getting a fresh start, a new life, a real connection. Instead, I just bought myself a one-way ticket to heartbreak and regret. I lost more than just myself, a piece I don't think I'll ever get back. This is my confession. This is how I let a dream in paradise become my worst nightmare. I remember stepping off that plane in Bangkok, feeling the humid air hit me. It was a relief, a real escape. Back home, my life was just empty. My wife, bless her soul, had been gone for 5 years. My kids were grown, living their own lives. I was just another old man rattling around in an empty house, waiting for the end. That's why I came to Thailand. Not for anything specific, just to get away, to see something new, to feel something new. Then I found Pattaya, and more specifically, Soi 6. I'd heard stories, of course, but I told myself I was just curious. I walked into this one bar, the music loud, the lights flashing, and that's when I saw her, tending the bar. She had this laugh, bright and genuine, and her eyes, they just drew me in. I bought a drink and then another, and we started talking. Her name was Maya. She was Filipina, but working here. She told me about her family, how hard she worked. I told her about my quiet life, my loneliness. It felt easy, honest. I felt alive again, something I hadn't felt in years. I knew, even then, I was walking a thin line, but for the first time in a long time, I didn't care. I felt a connection, something real. I let myself believe it. "So, you come here often?" she asked, leaning closer over the bar, her voice soft but clear over the thumping music. I shook my head, my smile feeling stiff. "First time in Pattaya. First time really out of the country. In years." "Oh, really? Where are you from?" she pressed, her eyes still on mine. "America. Little town you wouldn't know," I told her, feeling a warmth spread through me. It wasn't just the beer. It was her attention. "Why you come here, John? You looking for fun?" she asked, a playful glint in her eye. I hesitated, then found myself saying, "No, not really. Just felt like I needed a change. My wife, she passed a few years back. Been pretty quiet since then." Her expression softened immediately. "Oh, I am so sorry, John. That is very sad. You are alone now?" I nodded, feeling a lump in my throat. "Pretty much." She reached across the bar and gently squeezed my hand. "You are a good man, I can see it. Everyone needs someone." Her touch, that simple gesture, it hit me hard. I hadn't felt a connection like that in years, certainly not since my wife was gone. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. "My family, they are in the Philippines," she continued, pulling her hand back but keeping her gaze steady. "It is very hard there. My mother, she is sick. I send money every month, but it is never enough." Her voice held a hint of sadness, a vulnerability that mirrored my own. I looked at her, truly looked at her, and saw not just a bar girl, but a young woman trying to make her way, caring for her family. My heart, the one I thought was locked away, felt a tiny crack. "That's tough, Maya," I managed to say. "You're a good daughter." She smiled, a genuine grateful smile that made my chest ache. "Thank you, John, you are very kind." I ordered another drink, not because I needed it, but because I didn't want the conversation to end. I found myself telling her more about my life before, my regrets, the quiet desperation I'd lived with. She listened, really listened, her head tilted, her eyes wide. It felt like a confession, and in return she offered me understanding, something I hadn't known I was missing so deeply. I felt a sense of hope bloom in my chest, a dangerous, fragile hope. This was it, I thought. This was my second chance. I knew the reputation of Soi 6. I wasn't completely oblivious, but her kindness felt different. It felt real, and I desperately wanted it to be. I wanted to erase all those lonely nights back home, all those silent dinners. My guard was down, and I welcomed it. My heart was wide open. I started spending every day with Maya. I'd go to the bar, and she'd always be there, greeting me with that smile. After her shift, we'd eat dinner, walk along the beach. She'd tell me stories about her life, her family struggling back in the Philippines, her dreams of opening a small business. I found myself listening, really listening, something I hadn't done in years. She made me feel important, cared for. She'd hold my hand, look at me with those big, soulful eyes. "You're a good man, John," she'd say, and I'd just melt. I started helping her. First it was small things, paying for a new dress, helping with a phone bill for her family. Then it grew. She needed money for her sister's hospital bills, then for her mother's medicine. I didn't question it. I wanted help. I had the money and she had my heart. I felt like I was finally doing something meaningful, truly making a difference in someone's life. I even started thinking about getting a long-term visa, staying here for good. My lonely house back home felt 1,000,000 miles away, and I didn't miss it one bit. This was my new life, and Maya was at the center of it. "John, you are so different from other men here," she told me one evening, her fingers tracing lines on my arm as we sat by the water. "They only want one. I am comfortable with you, so much. But my family, it is so hard. My brother, he needs money for school. My sister, her baby is sick." Each story, each plea, chipped away at my reserves. Not just of money, but of my sense of self-preservation. I found myself thinking, this is what it feels like to be needed again. "How much does he need for school?" I'd ask, already reaching for my wallet. "Just a little, John, maybe 15,000 baht for his books. It would help him so much," she'd say, looking up at me with those earnest eyes. It wasn't just the money, it was the feeling she gave me, that I was her savior, her protector. I had spent so long feeling useless, and now, with her, I felt essential. We started talking about my retirement. "You have enough money, John, to live here, to be happy?" she'd ask, her tone laced with concern. I'd assure her, telling her about my pension, my investments. I felt like I was confiding in a true partner. "Maybe you buy a small house here, something for us," she suggested one day, her eyes bright with a dream I was starting to share. We could be together, always. No. The thought of her not having to work, of us having a quiet home together, filled me with a deep, unexpected joy. My days revolved around her. If I wasn't with her, I was thinking about her, planning our next meal, our next trip. We took a short trip to an island nearby, just us. Lying on the beach, watching the waves, she snuggled close. "This is perfect, John," she whispered. "This is my dream. You are my dream." I believed her completely. Any small doubts, any little voice in my head that whispered caution, I silenced them. She was my second chance. My love. I wanted to spend every last day making her happy, making her comfortable. My savings account was shrinking, but my heart felt fuller than it had in years. "Are you sure you don't mind helping my family, John?" she'd ask, sometimes her voice almost hesitant. "No, Maya, I want to help," I'd insist. "Your family is important to you, and that makes them important to me." I told myself I was a good man, finally putting my resources to good use. I genuinely thought I had found my soulmate, my peace in this faraway land. I had never been happier, never felt more loved. I was convinced this was real. I remember the first time a little crack appeared in my perfect world. Maya had been with me almost constantly. Then, one day, she said she needed to go to Bangkok for a day, for family papers. I told her okay, but something felt off. She usually didn't leave me. Lou, she was gone for 2 days. When she came back, she was a little distant, quieter. I asked her about it, and she just said, "Family problems, John." "Eggs?" "Nothing." I tried to brush it off. Maybe I was just being paranoid. Then there were the calls. Her phone would ring, and she'd step away talking in a hushed voice, often in Tagalog. When I asked, she'd say it was her brother or her mother. Sometimes she'd quickly hang up. My stomach would tighten, but I'd tell myself I was being ridiculous. I trusted her. She loved me, right? She always said, "You are my world, John," and I believed her. But those small moments, they started to pile up, like tiny pebbles in my shoe. Not enough to stop me, but enough to feel uncomfortable. "John, I need to go to Bangkok tomorrow," she announced, her voice flat. As we finished breakfast, my fork paused halfway to my mouth. "Oh? What for, honey?" I asked, a tiny flicker of unease sparking in my chest. "Just family papers. Very important, you know, for my mother." She wouldn't meet my eyes, instead focusing on her plate. "Can't I come with you?" I offered, my voice gentle, genuinely wanting to support her. I wanted to be involved. She shook her head quickly, almost too quickly. No, it's women's business. You would be bored. I raised an eyebrow, but didn't argue. Women's business? That's a strange thing to say, I thought, but I told myself she just had her own way of doing things. Maybe it was a cultural thing. I tried to dismiss the feeling, but it clung to me. She was gone for 2 days. 2 full days. My hotel room felt empty without her. When she finally returned, walking through the door, I rushed her. Maya, I missed you. Is everything okay? How were the papers? I asked, hugging her tight. She gave me a brief, almost stiff hug back. Yes, fine, just very tired. Her eyes seemed distant, like she was looking through me. What kind of papers were they, honey? Was it complicated? I pressed, wanting to break through her quietness. She sighed, pulling away slightly. Family problems, John. It's nothing for you to worry about, just paperwork. Very boring. Her tone was so final, a chill ran through me despite the humid air. I told myself, she's just exhausted, leave her be, John. Don't be demanding. But the knot in my stomach tightened. Then the phone calls started becoming more frequent. Her phone would buzz and she'd grab it instantly, her body tensing. Excuse me, John, she'd say, stamping away, sometimes into the bathroom, sometimes just out onto the balcony, her voice dropping to a whisper. I'd catch snippets of Tagalog, words I didn't understand, spoken with an urgency I hadn't heard from her before. My heart would pound a little faster. One time, I walked into the room unexpectedly, and she quickly hung up, her hand darting away from the phone like she'd been burned. Who was that? I asked, my voice softer than I intended, trying not to sound suspicious. She startled, jumping slightly. Well, just my cousin. She needed to ask about something. She forced a smile, a little too wide, a little too bright. My stomach tightened again, the familiar knot of unease. No, it's nothing, I told myself, trying to calm my racing thoughts. She's just private. Everyone has their own conversations. But the feeling, the quiet whisper of doubt, was growing louder, like a distant rumble of thunder. She still said, "You are my world, John," sometimes several times a day. She still held my hand, still kissed me goodnight. I clung to those moments, using them to push away the creeping fear. I trusted her. I had to. I had invested so much, emotionally and financially. I couldn't face the idea that I might be wrong. The alternative was too painful. So I denied what my gut was telling me. I kept her close and told myself that everything was fine. It had to be. I remember the day I decided to propose. Not a marriage proposal, not yet, but a life proposal. I wanted her to move in with me permanently, to get a proper visa so she wouldn't have to work at the bar anymore. I told her my plan and she just beamed. "Oh, John, that would be a dream," she said, hugging me tight. I felt like the happiest man alive. I even started looking at apartments for us, something nice away from the chaos. I talked to a visa agent, got all the paperwork sorted. It was expensive, but I didn't care. This was our future. The day of the interview came, and Maya went alone. She came back looking different. Not happy, not sad, just blank. "They asked so many questions, John," she said, avoiding my eyes. They said I already have a boyfriend." My heart dropped. "What? Who?" I stammered. She just shook her head. "I don't know, John, maybe a mistake." My stomach twisted. It wasn't a mistake, I knew it. In that moment, the entire carefully constructed world I had built around us, around her, it just shattered. "Maya, I have something important to tell you," I began. One sunny afternoon, my heart pounding with excitement. We were at our favorite beachside restaurant, the waves gently lapping. Nearby, she looked at me, her eyes curious. "What is it, John? You look so serious." I took a deep breath. "I want you to stop working at the bar. I want you to live with me, properly. We can get you a long-term visa, a retirement visa, or something that lets you stay." Her eyes widened and then a radiant smile spread across her face. "Oh, John, really? You would do that for me?" She reached across the table, squeezing my hand tightly. "That would be a dream. No more bar, no more that, life, just us." She sounded so genuine, so happy, and my chest swelled with love and relief. I imagined our future, peaceful and real, away from the loud music and flashing lights. I felt like the happiest man alive, truly. I immediately started looking at apartments, something spacious and quiet, away from the chaos of Soy 6. Where we can really make a home, my angel. I found a visa agent that same week. He explained the process, the costs. It will be expensive, Mr. Peterson, he warned me, and there is no guarantee. I don't care about the money, I told him, waving off the concern. This is our future. Just tell me what to do. I signed the papers, transferred the funds, thousands of dollars, without a second thought. This wasn't just a transaction. It was an investment in my happiness, in our happiness. The day of her interview came, and she left early, dressed in a nice, modest outfit I had bought her. Good luck, my love, I whispered, holding her tight. I waited for hours, pacing my hotel room. My phone buzzed. A message from her. I'm finished, coming back. When she finally walked through the door, her face was unreadable. Not happy, not sad, just blank. My heart instantly tightened. Maya, what happened? Is everything okay? I asked, rushing to her. She dropped her bag and looked at me, her eyes glazed over. They asked so many great questions, John, she said, her voice hollow. So many difficult questions. What kind of questions? Did it go well? I pressed, my stomach starting to churn. She took a shuddering breath. They said I already have a boyfriend. My entire world tilted. The words hit me like a physical blow. My voice caught in my throat. What? Who? What are you talking about, Maya? I stammered, my mind racing, trying to grasp onto something, anything. She just shook her head, slowly. I don't know, John, maybe a mistake, a big mistake. Her eyes finally met mine, but they were empty. My stomach twisted violently. It wasn't a mistake, I knew it. All the little whispers, the distant calls, the vague answers, it all slammed into me at once. In that agonizing moment, the entire, carefully constructed world I had built around us, around her, around my hopes and dreams, it just shattered into a million pieces. My breath hitched. I felt the floor fall out from under me. I remember sitting alone in my hotel room, the air conditioner humming, but I still felt cold. My mind raced, trying to put the pieces together. All those late-night calls, the disappearances, the vague answers, the family problems that were never explained. It all made sense now, a terrible, sickening kind of sense. She had another life, another man, all while she was holding my hand, telling me I was her world. My money, my kindness, my love, it had all been a transaction for her, a means to an end. I felt like an idiot, a complete fool. How could I have been so blind? I had given her everything, opened my heart completely, after years of being closed off, and she had just used me. The shame burned, hot and fierce. I thought about packing my bags, just leaving, but I couldn't. I needed to know. I needed to understand. I felt trapped not just by her lies, but by my own desperate need to believe. The loneliness I had tried to escape had now returned, sharper and more painful than before. I paced the room, back and forth, the cold tile under my bare feet doing nothing to cool the fire in my gut. My head throbbed. A boyfriend, I muttered to the empty room. She had a boyfriend the whole time? Every memory, every tender word she'd whispered, it all twisted into something ugly, something fake. How could she? How could I have been so stupid? My own reflection in the dark window stared back, a crumpled, thirst for you, or reflection in the dark window. I tried to make sense of it, to find some loophole, some explanation that wasn't so damning. Maybe it's just a misunderstanding, I whispered, but even my own voice sounded like a lie. The image of her blank face, her empty eyes when she told me about the visa interview, it was burned into my mind. No tears, no real apology, just a cold, dismissive tone. I don't know, John, maybe I'm mistaken. That was the truth, finally, after months of her lies. My phone sat on the nightstand, dark. I picked it up, my thumb hovering over her contact. What would I say? What could she even say that would fix this? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I thought about all the money I'd given her, the hospital bills for her sister, the mother's medicine, her brother's school. Was any of it even real? I had felt a wave of nausea. I had poured my hope, my lonely heart, and a substantial chunk of my retirement savings into a fantasy. The shame was suffocating. I had escaped to Thailand to find peace, to find a connection, and instead I had walked straight into a trap, built on my own vulnerability. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out, just a hollow ache in my chest. I felt exposed, utterly foolish, and so So alone. The loneliness I had left behind in America felt like a gentle breeze compared to this hurricane inside me. I was trapped, not by a physical barrier, but by weight of my own foolishness, my own desperate need for love, my dream of a peaceful life with her here in Thailand. It wasn't just shattered, it was incinerated. There was nothing left but ash. I sank onto the bed, the silence of the room deafening, broken only by the hum of the air conditioner and the pounding of my own broken heart. What was I going to do now? Where would I go? I had built my new world around her, and now it was gone, leaving me stranded. I remember I went back to the bar, not to make a scene, not to yell, just to talk to her, one last time. My feet felt heavy, each step a testament to the bitter truth settling in my gut. I tried to prepare myself, to harden my heart, but the thought of seeing her again, knowing what I now knew, made my stomach clench. I walked into the familiar chaos of Soi 6, the blaring music, the flashing lights, the women calling out. My old bar, the one that had felt like a second home, now felt like a stage for a cruel play. I pushed through the swinging door, and there she was, behind the counter, laughing with another customer, a younger man. She looked just like she did when I first saw her, vibrant and charming, her head thrown back in genuine seeming amusement. My heart ached, a sharp, familiar pain, but strangely it also felt cold, almost numb. I watched her for a moment, just watched, the realization sinking deeper. This was her job, this was her life. I was just another mark. When she finally looked up and saw me, her bright smile faltered. Her eyes, those big, soulful eyes I had fallen for, flickered with something I couldn't quite name. Surprise, annoyance, guilt. I motioned for her to come over, a slight nod of my head. She hesitated for a second, then walked towards me, her face now carefully neutral. The music suddenly seemed louder, the lights brighter, amplifying the awkward silence between us. "John," she said, her voice softer than usual, a subtle attempt at tenderness that grated on my ears now. "You came back." I looked straight into her eyes, my voice surprisingly steady, almost flat. "Maya, the visa interview. They told me everything." Her eyes dropped, fixed on the counter between us. She started to wring her hands, a nervous habit I had once found endearing. "John, I can explain." "It's not what you think," she started, her voice a low murmur, but it sounded hollow to me now, devoid of any real emotion, just practiced words. "No, you don't need to," I cut her off, my voice barely above a whisper, but firm. I didn't want to hear another lie. "I understand. Just why?" She finally looked up, her gaze meeting mine, and for a second, I thought I saw a flicker of something. Maybe regret, maybe just the exhaustion of keeping up a charade. But then it was gone, replaced by a cold blankness. "I have family, John," she said, her voice flat now, completely devoid of warmth. "I need to survive. You were kind. Kind, not loved, not cared for, not cherished, just kind." The single word sliced through me, a final, definitive cut. It was like a knife twist, a brutal validation of every creeping fear I'd pushed away. I realized then, with absolute clarity, that everything she had said, every tender moment, every confession of love, every touch, it had all been a performance. Well, her rehearsed act. The illusion was gone, completely, irrevocably shattered. There was nothing left to salvage. I didn't say another word. There was nothing more to say. I just nodded slowly, a single silent acknowledgement of the bitter truth. Then I turned, got up from the bar stool, and walked out. I didn't look back, not even once. I remember sitting on my balcony, watching the sun set over the ocean. The vibrant colors, the gentle breeze, it was beautiful, but I felt nothing, just an aching emptiness inside. It wasn't just about Maya anymore. It was about me, how desperately I wanted to believe in something good, something real. How that desperation had made me blind, made me ignore every warning sign. I had put all my hopes, my meanings, trust, into someone who saw me only as a wallet, a means to an end. I thought about my old life, the quiet solitude. I had run from it, but I had just exchanged one kind of loneliness for a much more painful one. I had been so convinced this was my second chance, my happy ending. But it was just another lesson, a bitter one. I didn't hate her. I couldn't. I just felt this profound sadness, not for what I lost, but for what I never truly had. The dream was never real. And accepting that, truly accepting that, was the hardest part of all. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in fiery oranges and soft purples, a masterpiece I usually would have admired. But my gaze was unfocused. My mind kept replaying moments, conversations, her smiles, her touches. Each memory, once cherished, now felt tainted. A cruel trick. "You are my world, John," her voice echoed in my head. "No, I wasn't your world, Maya. I was just your ATM." The realization wasn't angry, not anymore. It was just profoundly sad, a quiet, heavy weight in my chest. I had seen the red flags, hadn't I? The hushed phone calls, the vague excuses, the sudden disappearances to Bangkok. I had felt that knot in my stomach. But I had pushed it all down, silenced that nagging voice of doubt. Why did I do that? Why did I ignore myself? I closed my eyes, remembering my lonely house back home, the quiet evenings, the endless days after my wife passed, that empty feeling. I had come here to fill it, to escape it. I had been so desperate for connection, for someone to need me, to see me. That desperation had been my biggest weakness, a gaping wound she had effortlessly exploited. I had wanted love so badly that I had convinced myself her performance was genuine. I had paid for affection, for companionship, and then I convinced myself it was real, reciprocal love. The irony stung, a bitter taste in my mouth. I didn't blame her, not fully. She was trying to survive, just as she said. My anger had faded, leaving only a deep, aching regret for my own blindness, my own yearning. I opened my eyes and watched the last sliver of sun disappear below the horizon. The vibrant colors faded to a deep twilight, mirroring the descent into a quiet, cold reality. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about getting my money back or proving her wrong. It was about me, my loneliness, my vulnerability, my desperate need for a second chance that had clouded my judgment. I had run from grief and isolation, only to find a different, sharper kind of emptiness. The dream of a shared future, of a new beginning in paradise, was gone. It had never existed outside my own hopeful imagination, and truly accepting that, allowing that harsh truth to settle deep within me, felt like the hardest lesson I had ever learnt. I sat there for a long time in the gathering darkness, the silence of the city below, a world I now felt completely detached from. I finally saw myself not as a victim, but as a man who had chosen to be blind, desperate for a mirage. I remember the flight home. It wasn't a triumphant return, not at all. Just tired. I had lost a good chunk of my savings, but that wasn't the biggest loss. It was the feeling of being utterly foolish, the pain of trusting so completely and being so thoroughly betrayed. But as I watched the clouds outside the air-age window, something shifted. It wasn't rage anymore. It wasn't even purer regret. It was a kind of clarity. I had been running from my own loneliness, my own grief. I had looked for happiness outside of myself, in a foreign land, in the arms of a stranger. And in doing so, I had lost myself. This experience, as painful as it was, had forced me to confront that. I wasn't going to get revenge or rage at the world. That wasn't who I was. I was just going to pick up the pieces of my own life. Truly, for the first time in years. I knew it wouldn't be easy. But I also knew one thing for sure. And that in itself felt like a quiet victory. The airplane hummed, a steady drone that filled the silence around me. I stared out the window at the endless expanse of clouds, a soft, ethereal landscape that felt detached from my recent turmoil. My chest still ached, a dull, lingering pain from the wound Maya had left. But it wasn't raw anymore. The blinding shame had receded, replaced by a weary understanding. I thought about the thousands of dollars I had freely given her, the promises I had believed. The money was gone, vanished into a life that was never mine, for a family that wasn't real to me. That was a hard pill to swallow, no doubt, but the real cost wasn't just financial. It was the feeling of having been so utterly, completely played. My heart, which I had cautiously opened, had been treated like a toy, something to be manipulated for gain. Foolish, John, so foolish. I leaned my head back against the seat, closing my eyes. I had flown halfway across the world, escaping the quiet, echoing rooms of my house, the ghost of my wife's laughter, the unbearable silence. I thought a new place, a new person, would fill that void. I thought love could be bought, or perhaps earned through kindness and generosity. I was wrong. The peace I craved, the connection I desperately sought, wasn't waiting for me in a bar in Pattaya or in the deceptive promises of a young woman. It had to come from inside me. This whole painful ordeal, it had ripped away my last defenses, forced me to look at the man I had become, a lonely, vulnerable old man clinging to a fantasy. I wasn't angry at Maya anymore, not truly. Her actions, cold as they were, had simply exposed my own deep-seated needs and my profound naivety. There would be no grand confrontation, no dramatic revenge. That wasn't my way. What would be the point? To humiliate her? To scream into the void? It wouldn't bring back my money, and it certainly wouldn't mend my broken trust. My fight wasn't with her, it was with myself, with the part of me that had been so desperate to believe in a lie. As the plane descended, cutting through the clouds, I felt a strange sense of quiet resolution settle over us. I was returning home, not as the hopeful, naive man who had left, but as someone undeniably changed. Wounded, yes, but also awakened. I had confronted my deepest loneliness, felt the sting of betrayal, and survived. The path ahead wouldn't be easy, I knew that. My life was still waiting for me, the same quiet house, the same memories. But now, I wouldn't be running from them. I would face them, finally. This wasn't a happy ending, not in the way I had once dreamed, but it was an ending to a painful chapter, and the start of something new. A start of rebuilding, perhaps, a chance to truly pick up the pieces on my own terms. And that, in itself, felt like a quiet victory.